This is a very spontaneous video here. I don't have any script. Today is my birthday and I just wanted to share a bit of my story or my career progression into tech and then into Web3. Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Just in case you're seeing my face for the very first time, my name is Emmanuel and I'm a blockchain developer. I currently work as a developer advocate. And thinking back, it's actually quite interesting because you know when they say no one knows tomorrow, literally that has been the case for me. Did you know that I always wanted to be a medical doctor? In my mind, by now I'm supposed to be like a gynecologist. It was so strong that in secondary school, if you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would say I wanted to be a medical doctor. And this is actually quite interesting because most times the things that we want to do in life or those desires that we have, if you really look closely, you may find out that they are not necessarily our own desires and dreams. It will surprise you to know that some of the things that we think are the things that we want are based off of the things that we have seen other people do, or some of them are actually like other people's dreams. Some of them are even off peer pressure. So I think the decision to be a medical doctor was most likely off peer pressure, because if I look back to childhood, I remember that when I used to stay with my grandparents during holidays, I used to play a lot with some of the kids, and the kind of play we played then was breaking down scrap, you know, like a broken radio or maybe a broken torch, all of those electronic gadgets. And what we will do is that we'll break it into bits and then use those parts to construct new things. I think one of the things that we constructed a lot was torchlights. So we'll do them for ourselves and then we'll take them home, and then we are going to use them at home, and I really enjoyed it. But then when I got into secondary school, there was this thing where everybody was doing science, and then everybody in science they were like saying that they wanted to be medical doctors. Me self, I joined and said I also wanted to be a medical doctor. I don't know. In fact, if I look deeply, I will discover that it was actually there was somebody that was very popular in class, and then the rest of us, we just followed you. We listen, we don't judge. Don't judge me. When it became real to me that the dream of becoming a medical doctor was not mine, was when I discovered that I did not necessarily like the human body. Like, I can't stand blood. I can't stand human fluid. Then I would always like picture myself that imagine if I am actually a doctor, and since I wanted to be a gynecologist, I was helping a woman deliver, for example, and the woman starts crying and she's bleeding. What am I supposed to do at the sight of all of that blood? So I just decided that, okay, that is not necessarily what I want to do, because looking into the future, I didn't see myself coping with all of those things. Anyways, fast forward to when it was time to get into school, I started thinking back that, okay, what do I want to do? Since I don't want to be a medical doctor, and my dad wanted me to be a lawyer, and I was not seeing myself as a lawyer, what else can I do? I remembered when I was 10 years old, I remember there was a man that came to school then, and he told us that he was starting a program in a cyber cafe, and anybody that was interested could join. With just 700 naira, you are going to be trained on how to use the computer, and then you get a certificate. I remember going back home and disturbing my mom's life. I disturbed her till she agreed to give me the money, and during that period, I started the computer training. After the computer training, couple of years, I convinced my parents to get like a computer for us at home, and that was how I started playing computer. I also remember, like, anytime I go to my mom's office, because my mom's was working in an office that had a computer, she would always like be working on it, and I would always like try to use it as well. Back to the period where I was thinking of career paths, choices, and all of that, I remember that from the age of 10 till that point, I had been very curious about how computers work and how software work. So I just started to research and see what are the career paths that I can do relating to computer. And then I saw, of course, computer science and computer engineering. And thinking about it, I could have gone to study computer science, but then I was just thinking, instead of studying computer science and being a scientist, why not study computer engineering and be called an engineer? That was how I chose computer engineering as a course to study. Now, you think that when I went to school to study computer engineering, I was introduced to tech and I started writing code. But no, that was not the case. In fact, when I got into year one, I was disappointed and I was very upset because I was thinking that, okay, by the time I go to school, I would learn software engineering, I would learn hardware engineering, I will become a computer engineer. So tell me why I'm going to class and they are teaching me maths, or they're teaching me physics or chemistry, like all of those subjects that I thought I've escaped from. And to be very honest, I didn't have anybody, or I didn't know anybody that studied engineering, so I didn't know what to expect. But I was very disappointed and I didn't want to just wait for them to teach me. So that was how I began searching for other things I could do inside of computer engineering that were not necessarily taught in school. So I started to look for maybe clubs. Specifically, I was looking for people that had done it so that I could ask questions, but I couldn't find anybody. So the whole of year one, I was searching. I didn't find any club, I didn't find anything. But then in year two, I think, one of my friends literally like dragged me to attend an event. And on going to the event, it was a tech event. You can imagine my joy. Literally, I was just looking at all of them like this, like, where have you guys been all the while? This person will come and talk about software engineering, this person will come and talk about, let's say, web, somebody will come and talk about Android development, data, and like different career paths. And I was just in awe to be honest. And then I remember that after that particular event, there was a Slack group, which was like the community channel for communicating. I joined the Slack group, and believe me when I said I reached out to literally most of the speakers that I felt like would answer me. I reached out to everybody, asked questions. I was just telling them, please, what can I do? I'm interested in learning tech. What can I do? And all of them kept telling me, just follow your heart. Just do anything. You are the one to choose. We cannot choose for you. I heard that a lot until one person very kindly sent me links to websites that had different career paths in tech, like career paths that you could follow. Her name is Infolobon, Lady Bella. Yes, so I cannot say my story about how I got into tech without mentioning her, because she was very gracious and kind to me to like help me with resources. So she sent me a couple of articles with different career paths, and I decided to, I read all of them. And she told me, anyone that you find interesting, something that sparks your interest, the one that appeals to you most, come back with it and we'll go from there. So after doing all of the research, I discovered, okay, the one that intrigued me the most was web development. Why web development? Because the idea of you building something out of nothing, and then somebody somewhere in the world will be able to access it with nothing as well, just using a browser. It felt like magic to me, like a miracle. So I was like, okay, I wanted to do web development. And when I returned back to her, she gave me about 3 platforms that I could go to learn on. I can't remember all of them, but I remember that Code Academy was one of them and Free Code Camp was the other one. So she just gave me those links that, okay, I should go and learn. And that was how I started learning. I think the next year, my New Year resolution was now to learn specifically HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So to cut the long story short, because if I really want to give you like details, line, we are going to be here till tomorrow. I think one of the things that helped me at that particular point in time was asking the right questions. So I've seen a lot of people say that, oh, they want to get into tech, and the questions that they ask, literally, at the end of the day, you won't be able to help them much because they are focusing on the wrong thing. Now, for me, getting into tech, I was thinking about long term. I was thinking about a career path that I could build on. I was thinking about the things that outside of school, because one of the greatest desires of my heart was that I didn't want to leave school without a job. I didn't want to go through the normal timelines and say, okay, when I'm done with school, I'll then go for service, then I'll get a job. I wanted to leave university with a job. So I was very intentional about asking those questions. And then when I got the answers, I ran with it. That's another place where I see a lot of people, they don't really do well with it. So you ask the questions, they give you the answers, they give you resources to follow, and you don't follow them. How do you expect? Like, what miracle exactly are you expecting? So after she gave me the resources, I took it and then I started learning. So back to the story, the next year, like I told you, it was like my new resolution to learn. So I was just doing that, learning. I'm not even joking. I could write a book about HTML and CSS, but I had a problem. I could not piece them together. So it's one thing to learn, but then to actually be able to use those things to do something is another ball game altogether. And that was what I learned in that particular period, because I think it didn't occur to me until like June. I was talking to someone and he was like, okay, show me what you've done. And then I brought out my laptop and I was like, oh, look at this button I created, look at this table I created, look at this picture. And he was just looking at me as if something was wrong with me. And he was like, you're not serious. If for the past 6 months this is what you've been doing, you have to be able to build stuff with it. To tell you the truth, that day I cried literally, because I was very sad that I've been learning for like 6 months and you're telling me that I've not started learning. At the end of the day, I joined a boot camp in December. So I could have gone home because there was strike, but I stayed back in school and I joined a boot camp. Now, it was a 3 weeks program hosted by the Root Hub, and they had 3 learning parts. There was one for web development, there was one for digital marketing, and there was one for graphics design. So to tell you how curious I was, I got into that program with the intention of learning everything. But of course, after like the first couple of days or 1 week, I dropped out of the other courses and just focused on web development. Now, something that stood out for me during this period was that even though from the beginning of the year to that period, I had been learning, but I was not able to build anything with it. As soon as I got into that program and I had my teacher explain how to integrate everything together, I picked up very fast and I was able to start building things. To tell you how good it was, at the end of that particular program, I finished as the best graduating student. Truthfully, it was not as if I knew most or like I was better than anybody else. I think what the secret was that in a couple of months that I had been learning, I was actually accumulating knowledge. So I just needed somebody to show me how to put all of this knowledge together, and that was the missing link. So all of the things I had been learning that I felt like I'd been wasting my time, I had to just bring them together. And then at the end of that program, I was building. In fact, it wasn't even up to the end of the program. I was literally building fascinating websites. Like, I was building a lot of things, and I was offered an internship at the end of the program. So I ended up getting like an internship at the end of the year, like after 1 year of learning. And that was like my first tech kind of job experience, because I was going to work every morning from the next year. So that was how I got into tech. I was still going to school and I was still building my career in tech, from internship, job, freelance, all of those things. I did all of those things. That was how that went. So how did I actually get into Web3? Now, I was still in university, and because I was studying engineering, you know, engineering is full of guys. And then I noticed that during that period, they were talking about this new technology that it seemed very shiny and new. So everybody was talking about Web3, crypto. And I was interested. And I remember like talking to my friends, and they were telling me that, Glory, you're already writing code now. Come and write code in Web3. You're going to like it. But I was very afraid, to be honest, because I felt like my brain would not be able to contain all of the knowledge. Even though during the bootcamp, after HTML, CSS, I was exposed to like other languages like JavaScript, PHP, MySQL, WordPress, and I did a couple of things before that period. I still felt like I would not be able to handle it, that it would be too much for me to do. To be honest, I was just scared. I was just scared of going through the process of learning something new. And finally, I think one of my friends was able to convince me. He was like, just try it, just try it, just try it, just try it. And I did. But this time around, what I did differently was I didn't want to learn on my own. For Web2, I did different internships online. I did a lot of online boot camps. I did a lot of tutorials, courses, different platforms. But it took a while because I was figuring it out all by myself. So when it was time to learn Web3, I decided that, okay, I didn't want to learn alone. I wanted to learn with a community. And that led me back to Google. So at this point in time, one thing that you should take away from this story is that rather than waiting for answers or rather than waiting to ask people questions, you can always go online and Google it. So I literally went to search for where I could learn Web3 development, because if I was going to come into the Web3 space, into the crypto space, I didn't want to come as a trader. I didn't want to come as a community manager, because at that point in time there were a lot of not community manager, moderator roles. Yes, I didn't want to come as a moderator. I didn't want to come as a trader or a trader, all of those things. I wanted to come in as a developer, and I needed people that could help me become that developer in the Web3 space. And that was how I found communities like Web3 Ladies, Web3 Bridge, and I applied for all of them. Literally all of them, I applied for all of them. And I got in, learned the skill, and of course met people that also showed me more resources, and that was how it picked up from there. Now, one thing about me is that I just need a little push. I just need, just show me what to do, and I'll take it from there and I'll turn it into something else. So even when I started Web2, after I learned that, okay, web development was a thing, I still went on to do other things outside of web development. I went on to explore different frameworks, different technologies, and it applied even in Web3. Even though what I learned initially was smart contract development, I went on to add other layers. I think my first job in Web3 was as a front-end Web3 developer, and then I did integration as well, and then I did smart contract development as a job, and then I went on to add auditing, smart contract security and auditing, and I'm still learning. So this is just to say that sometimes the reason why people do not do things is because they want to have the full picture. They want to see, okay, is this what I'm going to do? If I'm going to do it, this is the only thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to stay here. But at the end of the day, that is not really the case. You just need to start, and then as you start, you discover other parts that might be more interesting to you, and of course you're free to leave this one that you have learned. Of course, you're not just going to learn it today and leave it, but then if you feel like there's something else that you feel is a better option for you, you can always leave that one and start the other one. But then the point is to start. Do not wait and say, oh, when I finish school, or maybe when I do this, or maybe when I do that. A lot of excuses I will come up with. Just start, and you'll be surprised how far you will go from just that one step of starting. I think another lesson I want to point out here is consistency. Remember when I said I started learning HTML and CSS in January, and as of June, I felt like I'd wasted my time. I felt like I'd not done anything useful. But then by December, all of those things that I learned from January up to that point made a lot of sense. So you have to be consistent. You don't just start something and you just drop it. Even though it looks like, okay, it's not making sense, if you just apply a bit more effort and just see how it goes, it will surprise you what it's going to turn out into. So from that particular period of trying, I landed an internship. So before I even left university, I had over 4 years of work experience. 4 years of working with companies, before I left university. What if at that point I just said, okay, it's not working for me, let me just drop it. Let me just leave it and do something else. I'll probably not be here. You'll probably not be watching me today. So I just want to encourage you to start and be consistent. It's very important that you be consistent, because you never know where it will take you to. Before I go, one more thing that you need to know is joining communities. At the end of the day, It's very cool to be self-taught. I believe that for most part of my careers, I was self-taught. But then for the other parts that I actually joined organizations to learn, it made a lot of sense. And then beyond just joining like boot camps, beyond joining trainings, beyond all of these things, it's very important that you find a community that you learn and grow with. Sometimes one of the regrets I have is that I started off clueless without anybody. I didn't know anybody that was doing that thing at that particular point in time. Just imagine if I had the same people with like mind. It would have made a lot of difference. So do not just be a lone ranger. Do not just say that, oh, it's just me and myself against the world. Join communities. The beautiful thing about joining communities is that you're going to meet people that are on the same path as you are, and you're also going to build networks that will outlive that particular phase of your life. Aside from that, opportunities. Sometimes the people that are in the communities will get opportunities, and because you are in the community, they'll refer those opportunities to you. So please do not just be a lone ranger. Join communities. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is building in public. I noticed a very big difference in my career when I started to talk about what I do in public. So the very first part of my career was very silent. I was not active on social media. I don't really like social media. But then I was just there doing my thing. But I noticed that I was not getting the jobs that I wanted. I was not getting the referrals that I wanted. So I decided to start doing all of these 100 days of code challenge, 30 days of JavaScript, like all of those challenges. I started doing it. And before I even finished the very first challenge, I started getting opportunities. I started getting referrals. Like people would see opportunities and they would remember me because they probably saw me post something that was related to that. So building in public is very underrated, even in Web3. In fact, for most of my careers, I've not really like applied for jobs like the normal job application routes. Most of them are off referrals. The other ones are off, okay, I met the founder and I was able to sell myself to the person very well. So building in public is actually very important. If you're shy, if you don't like to come outside and talk, let it be that your work is very good. If your work is very good, your work is going to speak for you. But better than your work speaking for you, you can do both of them. Your work can be very good and you can also build in public. That way, you get the reward that you deserve for the hard work that you're putting into it. It's very important because there are a lot of people that are doing awesome things, but then nobody knows that they are doing those things. And if nobody knows that you're doing that thing, nobody is going to reward you for that thing. So I just thought to share a bit of my journey. I hope that watching this video, you've learned a thing or two, or probably you've picked up something. I really hope so. So if you have any suggestion about the kind of videos that you want me to talk about, or maybe you want me to talk about more technical videos, or maybe more non-technical videos, do well to put it in the comments and I'll be happy to make a video about that. Now, if you're thinking of getting into tech and you don't know where to start from, in the description box I have a link of courses to different career paths that might interest you. So from machine learning to AI, down to data analysis, data science, down to web development, down to several courses and career paths. So if you're looking for resources, please do well to check the description box and get started. My DM is always open if you have questions. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.